Be in the garden, be in nature. I trust you're well, I certainly am. I just picked these apples off of my tree. It's so worth growing. It's so worth growing your own things. Organic, untreated, natural apples. They can be picked and stored, and they can last many weeks once picked. Be in the garden, it's definitely worth being in the garden. What I'm going to do in my video today is just to show you around my garden, to let you know what it looks like at this time of year. We're talking about October. It's a beautiful day today. However, we have had some storms, we've had a lot of rain as well in recent weeks, but I'm not complaining because the garden knows what she needs. So watch this video. I hope you can give me the thumbs up. I hope you can share. I hope you can like and subscribe, and I hope you can give me a comment. Maybe you can tell me, have you picked some apples this year from your own garden, or maybe a neighbouring garden? So this video, I'm just going to be showing you, walking around the garden and just showing you what there is and what changes I might make for next year. I have a big project I'm going to have to do next as well, so I might give you a little tip to what I'm going to be doing there. But as always, I'm really grateful to each and every one of you. Thank you all for watching. Thank you all for being on this journey with me. And I better go because I've got some stuff to do in the garden. So thank you so much. Okay, it's well and truly autumn, and I'm just going for a walk around the garden to see how everything is doing and how the plants have, for the most part, been at their best and are now preparing for their autumn. So I've got here the canna lilies. You must go back and have a look at one of the videos I planted earlier on. I'll link that above for you to have a look at, and how beautiful the flowers are and were. And this particular one here has been at its best and is really preparing to die back into the rhizomes, bury themselves snugly into the soil, and come back next year. I've still got some of the red and pink clovers. I hope I have more of those next year. So, the Pyrocanther has flowered completely, and what we can see here are the seed buds. They're really still very green, and I don't do anything with them at this time of the year. I just let them die completely back until they are completely dry, brown and brittle. And once that happens, I then take the seed pods and scatter them, and that's how I've been able to grow this whole patch of Pyrocanther plants, because they can be quite costly, but with patience you can increase their spread in the garden. They do make lovely baubles anyway at this time of year as well, so I just leave them in situ, the Pyrocanther, and sometimes maybe early springtime when these are really completely dry. You can see a couple of them beginning to dry, and what then happens is eventually they will dry so much that the seed pods will split, and you'll see the black seeds, which will either drop and replant themselves. So for sure over the years this area here has grown and grown. You can see down here actually, listen, I'm in the garden, there are lots of people out in the gardens too, you can hear some noises. I've got the poppies, and actually I didn't realise that they put leaves out at this time of year, unless it's the weather really trying to confuse them, but I've certainly got some of these poppies attempting to make an appearance. We're in October at the time of recording this, and the weather has been up and down, a bit of everything. Definitely rainy days, cold evenings, but today is a sunny one. We've got a spider's web. I don't know if you can make the form here, but there is a spider's web here, and this right here is the Cotinus betulus. And at this time of year you can see that the leaves are just beginning to turn that typical autumnal colour on the edges, just looking a little crispy. This here is the tree that will retain its leaves through the winter. Well, actually depending on weather, it's very windy, but these leaves, which is why I chose this tree for the garden, will dry to a complete crisp. It will be like craft paper, brown and beautiful, but the leaves for the most part will stay put on the tree. And you see them, they're often used as hedges in gardens and areas, because they do continue to hold on to their leaves even when the winter comes. So that's that hedge there. You can see overall the autumn colours are definitely coming through now, and beneath that we have Euonymus, and that always does well. A nice easy plant. You can see the tip of this one here actually is suggesting that it's putting on new foliage, which is strange at this time of year, but there you have it. Nature does what she likes, and rightly so. In front of that we have the lavender, and they've all but dried. I have one or two random little buds in places, but otherwise really the lavender is done. And the reality is it's not visited by the bees anymore. So even the aroma is still there in the plant, but not as it was earlier on, you know, around June, July and September time. It's certainly slowing down in keeping with autumn. So there we have one part of the garden, just showing you how it's sort of, you know, preparing itself for autumn. On this side we have the jasmine, and the flowers are all done. So what we have here is the plant. I'm definitely going to be cutting this one back. It has grown substantially this season, so much so that it's really quite a distance away from the fence. You can hear people hammering, knocking, there are planes going over ahead. This is real life, so it's what it is. We always just come out and do what it is we need to do in the garden and let others do what they need to as well. So whilst I do apologise for the background noise in places, it's life. We've got here the wisteria, and honestly I have pruned this back a couple of times this year, but I will be doing so again. You can see where the new fresh buds are growing, and this wisteria, if not pruned back, can quite easily take over this whole area. I have a seating area underneath this part, and if I'm not careful, that wisteria, as you can see just along the bench here, will it will take over. This is where I also have my liquid amber just above, and I do need to be mindful of the wisteria because it does climb into my tree here, and it's not meant to. So I do have to hold that back a little bit. You can see the liquid amber doing its magic at this time of year, but I have a separate video on that anyway, so you'll have to come and watch that too. You would have seen me at this area earlier on in one of my videos, and the wild strawberries are still doing their thing. That's them here. In fact, I've even got some flowers, and if you look closely, I do have some tiny strawberries growing there. So I love the wild strawberries. They do enjoy the wet weather, I've noticed, in comparison to my other strawberries. What I might do at some point, maybe the next couple of months, I might actually split this, because at the moment I've got them growing in some terracotta pots, but I'm likely to split that and create more. I've got a few bits of herbs remaining here, a few leaves of sorrel, a couple of sorrel with the red veins. We've got some rosemary happening here. So in October, if you're thinking of what you can plant herb-wise, rosemary does well throughout the whole year, really. I do have some stevia here, looking a little shabby, but nonetheless it's here. I have some primrose. Yep, this is primrose. I have some, I can't remember what this one is, and I can't remember if it's just regular. I can't remember if it's chives, I have to be honest, I can't remember. But here we go, that's the little herb area, and it's at this time of year to be expected. Looking a little tatty, I'll be tidying that up, no doubt. Here we have the hosta. To be honest, this year it didn't do incredibly well because I replanted it, but I'm hoping that next year the growth will be a lot larger. I think for me at this time of year, autumn, as the leaves are dying back and many plants are beginning their process of hibernating, is a great time for me just to walk around the garden and see what happened well, what worked well, and also make notes perhaps as to what changes I might make. The hostas, I definitely love their situation in this large container, but despite all my efforts, the slugs and snails absolutely got the better of my hostas. I'm going to have to think of a way to deter them. Next year I'll see, and as you know, I don't use any pesticides, herbicides or slug repellent or any of those things. I have to come up with a solution that's going to allow me to enjoy the hostas more than the slugs. Okay, behind I've got the sarcococon. At this time of year it's always lovely to start seeing it putting on the tiny beginnings of the flowers, because come winter, around January, February time, this will give out the most amazing fragrance. Let's have a look around the rest of the garden. Well, true to form, the leaves are falling off the trees, and I'll be raking these up and putting them into compost bins. Let's have a look at the culprits. That's this huge tree here, and it really is. It was actually trimmed down to about half its height, and it's still probably, I'd say at least 30 feet tall. Beneath that we have the crabapples, and I did make a separate video on that as well, so please do have a look at my list of videos and you'll see where I monitored this tree over several weeks to bring you how it went from spring to from the beginning of spring really to the end of spring. At this time of year, what you see on the crab apples are some of the tiny apples. The tiny apples that we have here. And I'm going to have to take these one day and make them into like a jam or something, because they are edible. a bit on the bitter side, but they can be made into jam. So I will have to come back and harvest these one year and make a small jam or something, a small amount of jam. But that's the tree now, October time. You can see the leaves are turning yellow and red in some places, but this is a deciduous tree, so it will lose all of these leaves, and I will again be raking these leaves up and putting them into the compost. It's a lovely bit of wind there. Isn't the autumn a beautiful time of the year? What's your favourite time of the year? I think for me, it's definitely equal, either autumn or spring for me, and really for both reasons. Autumn time is as the plants are in many cases dying back and getting ready just to relax and hibernate for the year, and spring is the opposite, where things are just coming through and going to show you and reveal themselves. So those are my two favourite seasons personally. In the garden, definitely. I think in some ways autumn, autumn however signifies that the winter is round the corner, so for that reason it can be, I don't know, a little, what's the word I'm thinking of? It can be a little, you know the word, put it in the comments below. Autumn signifies that winter's round the corner, and winter is not my favourite month, or rather winter is not my favourite season, and so perhaps, look at the beautiful colours though. Can't argue about the colours, can you? Cannot argue about the colours. But in terms of the garden, I love autumn because it definitely gives me time to reflect and be encouraged by what is to come. I guess that's really what I mean. However, spring is to show you the growth, and that despite the winter, spring still shows her beauty. But yeah, there we go. That's what I'm looking at in my garden. October, beautiful blue skies. Not always like that at this time of year in the UK, but it certainly is today. So there's a lot of tree canopies we can see. This is the magnolia here. It's the magnolia, and you can see that it's still putting on that'll be the casing for the flowers for next year, but the leaves are beginning to just crispen on the outside, and the autumn is definitely on its way. There we go. We've got the green, so they will lose all their leaves. We've got the tree in the foreground, as I said. It's a poplar that will lose all its leaves, and then we've got this beauty. But when you see the glistening of these colours in the sun, I mean, you know, you can't be mad at autumn, can you? You cannot be mad at autumn. Lovely, it's a joy. Okay, what else is happening in the garden? Well, beneath the magnolia tree are the banana plants, and I will be sending one of these pups to the winner. And if you want to see who that person is, have a look on my previous video about the banana plants, and I said I'll be handing one of these out to an individual, so long as they're residing or living or would like to receive the plant in the UK. I'd be giving them one of these as a gift, simply by subscribing, liking, sharing, and leaving a comment, which they did. So thank you to you for your comment. And this particular subscriber has beautiful plants in their garden, so I hope that you will be able to receive this with the love in which I will be sending it to you, and you can plant this in your garden, which already looks beautiful. So there we have it. I will be cutting these down soon and wrapping them up to keep them warm through the winter. Oh, you can see that I put a lot of my grass clippings, in fact all my grass clippings, well, they're either going to the compost or I put them all around the banana plants, because they will just break down and provide it with a lot of the, the nitrogen it needs to grow its beautiful green leaves. That's somebody calling me. Let me just get that call. Okay, so I was talking about my banana plant here, and it's a gorgeous plant all on its own. It needs no introduction. Look at the colours, look at the structure, look at the architecture of that leaf. And then below we have this comfrey. Lots and lots and lots of comfrey. We have some lemon balm. Beautiful. We also have some heucheras tucked in there somewhere. At the back we have the Virginia creeper, the Boston ivy. The apples have given us plenty this year, and I am grateful, absolutely grateful. And beneath the apple tree we have, in their own containers, some blueberries, and they have been prolific this year also. They really have. The growth that these are putting on is incredible. I should imagine that one of these branches is possibly, yeah, I'd say it's 3 foot long. And you can see from the leaves here that they too are preparing to drop their leaves. These are the blueberries. I have them in containers, and I put them in containers just because they really do. I've done some experiments in the past to see whether I can get my blueberries to grow in regular soil, for want of a better word, and that's never been successful for me. So I have planted them in ericaceous soil or acidic soil, and you can see even from this plant here, the blueberry down here, that it has put on such a lot of growth, and they gave us so many fruits this year. I'm looking forward to them doing the same next year, but what they must do now, I guess, is say goodbye to the beautiful weather we've had. A mixed weather, some sunny days, some incredibly cold days, some windy days, some very rainy days. I think this year, I'd be right in saying it's quite a wet year in terms of rainfall. But here we have what's left of the blueberries, and their leaves are turning this gorgeous fiery yellow and red that just light up against the autumn sun. So those are the blueberries. They're the beautiful, beautiful leaves. Amazing. And I'm really looking forward to seeing you again next year, blueberries. Thank you for all the fruits you gave us this year. We've got some peonies. I've taken the heads off, and they will just die all the way back as well, pretty much this year. So some peonies. I look forward to seeing them again next year. Lots of comfrey, as I've said before, that just grows in abundance. We've got here another area where I have scattered some Pyrocanther again, and not Pyrocanther, agapanthus, sorry, and they're growing in abundance here. We've got some sedum, and they've got the seeds here. I planted this as a tiny little flower plant probably a couple of years ago, and it's really only now putting on the size that I would like, but again, it's October time and we still have it in full glory. It has the leaves and not dying back, but they will die back eventually. It does need sort of like a frosty cold, I find, for it to die back. Behind we have forsythia. That's going to be one of the early flowering trees in the springtime. So whilst the autumn sort of, sees the end of the flowers and many times the leaves as well, it's nice to have in the garden some plants that will be able to flower in the springtime. And one of them here is the forsythia, and it has some amazing bell-like yellow flowers. So I look forward to that. This area provides quite a lot of shade. I have another plant that's happening here, and you know what, I actually can't remember the name of it at this moment, but I'll see if I can put it into the link or into the description at the time of editing. And again, it's those lovely colours again, the red, gold and greens that you see at this time of year. Wouldn't you agree that these colours are just magnificent? And so for me, that's why I like the autumn, because you do get to experience these lovely colours in the trees. Looks very, I think, very, very inviting, very stunning. The red, gold and green, especially against that incredible blue sky that we're having in October. Again, at this time of year, it gives me an opportunity just to reflect on how the garden has been through the seasons. And I know my intentions for this part here, where I have these huge leylandii. My intention over time will be to cut them down completely, and in their place will be the yew trees, or they will grow. So I've actually planted the yew tree. I think you would have seen that in one of my previous videos, where I've already planted the yew trees in place, and as they're growing, and they have put on growth a lot already, as they continue to grow up the height of the fence, which is 6 foot about here, I'll let them keep growing, and I'll be reducing the limbs or the branches of the leylandii. And as the yew grow, I will then, once it sort of gives us the privacy that we need over the fence, I will then take the leylandii down until I'm able to remove it completely. That's going to be a massive job, a huge job. I will not be doing that on my own. I will definitely have to drag my hubby out to help me to do that job. But in the meantime, in between times, the real reason what we planted these leylandii was really it was just for privacy. There was nothing behind this. It was actually a lot of open space, and then over the years they built accommodation, rightly so, for human beings, and we just wanted privacy, so I put the leylandii up because they are a fast growing tree, so not to be recommended if you're not able to manage them. This tree here is my silver birch, and I have it just by one of my bench chairs, and that's me in the mirror behind. And the silver birch is doing great. I've had them before in the garden, and one of them unfortunately came down during a storm, and so I replanted several, and intentionally this one I've put 3 together, so it almost looks like a multi trunk. To buy the multi trunk ones, they're really expensive, and so what I did, my gardening hack if you like, was to plant 3 together, and I will allow them to grow as they are, and give the impression that it's a multi-stemmed trunk. There is actually another set of them behind. You can see the difference. Although they're the same age, the ones at the back have got more shade and a lot smaller and still dark in colour in the trunks, whereas these ones which have got more light has started to put on the white bark, which the silver birches are so well known for. Okay, let's have a look at some more garden. The canopy of this one's lovely. And the nickname for this plant here is smoke bush. That's this one above my head here. And in autumn it gives off a lovely yellow. These leaves become a really very lime, sort of like a really bright yellow in this one here. But I've also got the burgundy version of this. There aren't any examples of it turning. Yes, there are, a little bit at the very tips. Some of them are just beginning to go yellow. We have another apple tree here, which did okay. Is it okay to say that they did okay? I've got an apple tree just behind me here, and we've also got a cherry tree to my side, and they both did very well. No, actually no, let me just correct myself. The apple tree, I think I spoke to you about it before. One of the apple trees has been, what do you call it? I forgot the word. I'll put it in whilst we do. I'll edit that word in. The apple tree was, I'm still thinking, how many minutes later is that? The apple tree grafted, that's the word I was thinking of. The apple tree was grafted and 2 of the branches did incredibly well, but one of them not so well, so that's what I meant by that. We've got a cherry tree which did reasonably well this year. Again, it's still quite young, and I'm hoping that next year we have even more. This here is a volunteer Jerusalem artichoke. I've spoken to you about this plant before. It reminds me of Jack and the Beanstalk. This is probably, we're at 9 feet tall here where I've got the camera, and this is a Jerusalem artichoke. And it must have been a little bit of soil I had somewhere, because this was not the intention for this plant. Nonetheless, it's doing its thing, and I will be digging these out from this particular area. We have another hedge back here, that's the laurel hedge, and it serves its purpose, again, privacy. We have some accommodation, or some people whose accommodation is just on the other side, and we just would like to maintain that level of privacy. We have some more comfrey everywhere. However, have a look on this side. We have some heucheras here. Heucheras are a great plant because they really don't need much attention at all. They don't need any fussing over. They'll die back slightly through the winter. Heucheras come in all different shades nowadays. You get the green ones, the orange leafed ones, the burgundy and green, so many different colours. And actually, I think they make a great statement on their own. I find them to be cost effective because once you plant them once, they really do last a long while. We have them growing in some containers. They'll die back certainly over the winter, but they will soon bounce back. These are the heucheras. More spiderwebs. And the gravel path. I put this in many years ago now, and you saw one of the recent videos, me working at the back here, clearing it up. The bees are doing very well, and this area is cleared. Not. It has grown back incredibly. And actually, one of my next videos will be this section here. I've got to think about, so because it's autumn time, I now need to think about what I'm going to do in this area here. But I'm going to come back to this in another video. I'm going to continue just showing you overall what's happening in the garden. The bamboo, well, that's done really well. They'll sort of, stop growing at this time of year. They don't die back completely, I find. I think I'll normally have a few of the leaves still on here. If you remember, in one of the previous videos I showed you the Jerusalem artichoke. They really do get everywhere. So some of these I think have reached heights of about 10 feet, 11, maybe 12 feet tall. They do normally give you a little flower, like a daisy-like flower, a little like a miniature sunflower, if you will. And but I need to sort that bed out. I'm not pleased with that bed anymore. I do want to make some changes there. I would also like to make some changes back here in the strawberry bed. There's a lot of changes I plan for back here. In fact, some of the strawberries here, maybe because of this up and down weather, are starting to flower and fruit again, which is quite unusual for this time of year. Let's just keep going. I'm going to give you the overview of what's happening in this garden. Earlier on this year, I showed you this bench and the work I did at the back here, replanting the yew hedges here, but also increasing the amount of paving stones for this bench. The pond is looking, it looks a little neglected somehow. I often feel though at this time of year that much of the garden just looks so tatty, and it's not really. I mean, it's the way nature intends it to be, but it certainly gives me food for thought when planning and prepping for next year. But absolutely, this garden here, the pond, is looking a little overgrown. We can see to the left here I've got the gunnera, or the large leafed plant, and it's also sort of collapsing its leaves back down. We have some ferns, which I love beside these rocks. I absolutely love them beside the rocks, but they're beginning to sort of, you know, die back slightly. They look a little whittled. At the back of the pond is actually a willow tree. I planted that just from a stem, and I've got to be mindful because I know it can get really quite large, so I do tend to prune that back real hard and it will just keep growing back. We've got the pear tree to this side of the pond, and we have harvested so many, but I can see one little pear tree just there waiting for me to pick. There's one pear tree just remaining. And at the very far back of the garden, I know that there's a lot of changes I want to make back here. So I want to say to you, thank you so much for joining me. The weather is definitely changing, and as you can see back here, this is definitely looking unkept. It's the part of the garden where I tend to store unused items with the view that they will be useful one day. It's the part of the garden where we do intend to have a big project done back here at some point. But I have to show you the garden in all its honesty, and you can see for yourself that back here is looking a little neglected. But in the summertime, in the spring, the summer, it's fabulous. It is fabulous. There's the path that I made, and you will see that in a prior video also. And I just need to get this place looking a little bit prepared so that come spring it's ready to show its best. So I want to take this moment to say thank you to each and every one of you. I'm going to be leaving this video there for today. and I'm going to see you in one of my next videos. In fact, I think one of my next videos, having been around my garden, is going to be, it's going to be a big project, and it will take many months to complete, but I definitely need to have a look at my raised vegetable beds. Some of the wood pallets that I used have collapsed and broken, and I think there's a fox living underneath one of my raised vegetable beds, and so I need to find a way to reconstruct that area so that I don't have all these critters going into my vegetables. So that's what I'm going to be doing over the autumn into the spring, no doubt, amongst other things in the garden. But thank you as always. I hope you're having a lovely, lovely autumn day. I certainly am. And as I say, keep watching Be in the Garden. Please help my channel to grow. I do appreciate, love each and every one of you. And do share and like, subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you to those who have. And I really look forward to seeing you in my next video. For now, take care, enjoy, be in the garden. The apples. I still have apples to pick. We're in October. These are not shabby at all.